So we
Mhm.
are the closest ever to midnight at 90 seconds to midnight right now. And
Mhm.
the farthest we have ever been is at 17 minutes to midnight, which is when the Cold War ended.
You're on the gist on Strat News Global. I'm Surya Gangadharan. Hello and welcome to another edition of the gist. And today we are going to talk to Dr. Manpreet Sethi, our a well-known scholar on nuclear issues, because there's an element of celebration here. She's joining the board of the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. Manpreet Sethi, welcome and glad to have you.
Thank you very much, Surya. Pleasure to be here.
And congratulations. Tell me exactly what does the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists do, and what will you be doing there?
Yeah, so thank you for the congratulations. The Bulletin of Atomic Scientists is a journal that was established in Chicago right after the nuclear weapons were used for the first time in 1945. So it's in 1947 that the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists was established, basically by the coming together of some of the scientists who had been part of the Manhattan Project. So you remember the secret Manhattan Project that led to the making
Absolutely,
of the bomb?
absolutely.
So
Mhm.
the scientists came together, some of them, to set up this particular bulletin, basically to provide people with information about what this new technology was all about. And when they started this, the first edition of the journal actually had the clock face to
Mhm.
indicate how far are you from midnight, and midnight was seen to be the end of the world. So you're self-destructing because of the use of nuclear weapons. So in 1947, when it first started, the cover of the bulletin had this clock face, and the time was set at 7 minutes to midnight at that time. Because
Mhm.
it was an arbitrary sort of time that was taken, believing that you were that far away from leading yourself to some kind of a global catastrophe. And then from 47 onwards till today, they set the time of the clock every year to indicate graphically and I would say symbolically as to how far are you, what are the kinds of risks that you are living with, and that's essentially the purpose of this Doomsday Clock. So, as part of the board member of the Science and Security Board, I will have the opportunity of participating in discussions to decide what the time on the Doomsday Clock should be.
So this Doomsday Clock is the name that the bulletin has given to this clock, or is it
That's right.
something that is in the public?
No, that's the name that is given to this clock. So it's called the Doomsday Clock to show how far or close are you to Doomsday.
And how far are we close to Doomsday?
So at this moment in time in 2024, the setting of the time happens normally in the month of January. So we
Mhm.
are the closest ever to midnight at 90 seconds to midnight right now. And
Mhm.
the farthest we have ever been is at 17 minutes to midnight, which is when the Cold War ended. So there was a lot of euphoria about, the Cold War having ended, the threat of nuclear war was seen to have receded. And that's when we came to 17 minutes to midnight. But over
Mhm.
this period of 47 till now, I think the time has been changed 25 times, either coming closer to 12 or going away from 12.
So we are with the Gaza war going on and with the Ukraine war also going on. How far are we now from Doomsday?
So we are 90 seconds to midnight as of now. And certainly the two conflicts which are going on in the world have been sort of taken into account because they have increased the level of insecurity across the world. And given that Russia is a nuclear weapon state and has done enough nuclear brinksmanship behavior, and
Yeah.
Israel too has nuclear weapons, there is a concern about the possibility of use of nuclear weapons. And we've certainly, come to 90 seconds to midnight as a result of that. But I also wanted to mention that from 2007 onwards, they have also started factoring in climate change concerns in order to
Mhm.
do the setting of the time. What they're doing is looking at two of the existential risks to mankind. So whether it's nuclear weapons or whether it is climate change, both are seen to be, things that can sort of doom us out of existence. And therefore, both
Mhm.
of these are taken into account for setting of the time since 2007.
Mhm. On balance, which do you think is the bigger threat?
I would say both of them are extremely important, and we seem to be, you remember the sand glass we used to have, where the sand is sort
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
dripping out, and we seem to be in that situation. I would say we are literally sleepwalking into disaster with the kind of situation that we've arrived ourselves in. If you look at, the geopolitical situation at this moment, we have uh, nine nuclear armed countries in adversarial dyads with each other, not talking to each other. There are
Hmm.
no strategic dialogues between any of them. Each one is assuming the worst of the other and going on building up its capability. There is a trend towards building nuclear weapons rather than arms control or bringing them down. In fact, arms control architecture has pretty much collapsed. And given
Yeah.
that these big powers are not talking to each other, even climate change issues don't get taken up with the collective sort of cooperative behavior that it should be, because none of the countries is individually going to be able to find the answer to these problems. So we are,
Mhm.
I would say, in a rather dire situation where both sides seem to be pushing us, and we don't seem to be able to care enough to bring ourselves back from the brink.
Mhm. What is the view within the bulletin? The experts over there. What do they? Is there any one single offender here? There are multiple ones from what you have said. What? How do they see this?
I would not be able to yet comment on how the board sees this because I haven't participated in any of the meetings yet.
Mhm.
But I think if you look at some of the statements that come out every time the clock is set, there is an accompanying statement
Yeah.
explaining why the time has either been, brought closer or taken away from 12 o'clock. If you look at that, you can see that they are accounting for all kinds of activities taking place across the world. Uh, Largely, I would say from 2017 onwards, the US seems to be the biggest offender because
Hmm.
it's withdrawn from many of the treaties. In fact, President Trump in 2017-18, when he came out of most of the treaties like the INF, Open Skies, the Iran deal, there was a sense of loss of momentum on many of these issues. And we see the time came to about 2 minutes to midnight at that time. And there's been no sort of backsliding since then because no really positive developments have taken place since 2018.
Mhm. Is there concern about the India-China lack of strategic dialogue, or for the matter, India-Pakistan?
India Pakistan certainly did figure in 1998 in changing the
Hmm.
time. So
Yeah.
we see, I think it was set back by about 3 minutes at that time from what
Mhm.
it was then. But India China hasn't figured much. And I think there is a sense of nuclear stability still between India and China. And
I
that
see.
hasn't been one of the factors that has affected the clock as of now.
Mhm. You agree with that? The sense of nuclear stability, India and China?
Yeah, largely, I think, I mean, we've been in a stalemate situation now for about almost 3 years, since 2020, actually, 4 years now in June. And, uh, the nuclear word has not been spoken between India and
Hmm.
China. So even a
Yeah.
conventional conflict is seen to be something that would happen in a theater, in a limited kind of an area. But unlike the situation between India and Pakistan, where the nuclear noises begin to be made every time the crisis breaks
Hmm.
out, that
Yeah.
doesn't happen here. Largely, I would say because India and China have doctrines which are very similar. The approach to nuclear weapons for both of us is largely as a political instrument. It's not for war fighting. We don't have first use policies. So that brings a certain amount of stability and calmness. And I think this actually should be seen as a model. I mean, if more countries
Mhm.
were to have no first use doctrines, I think that would actually bring the level of stability up instead of the situation that we today seem to be in.
Mhm. Say when India and Pakistan went to war, Kargil, Did the clock step back? I mean, did it go forward?
No, in 1998, since the clock had been already set back, so
Hmm.
Kargil didn't feature, at least not in the statements, in terms of
Hmm.
indicating that change of behavior. And it was a short period of conflict, unlike what has gone on between Russia and Ukraine, you know.
Hmm.
So, yeah, so
So
that didn't come in.
yeah, the fact that Pakistan's nuclear arsenal keeps going up, and there have been recent reports that India's arsenal has now gone one notch higher than Pakistan's. Do these things affect, the overall how the clock works and how nuclear
So
stability works?
the numbers don't really matter so much, particularly in the case of India, China, Pakistan, who don't declare official numbers. These are
Yeah, yeah.
guesstimates that have been made to say that, you know, India is, according to the SIPRI report this year, at 172. I mean, it's as precise as that.
Hmm.
But in the case of Pakistan, it's 170. I don't think these numbers really matter. What the clock, I think, looks at is more like trends. So you are, whether you're increasing or coming down, whether your capabilities, you know, whether the, even the language. In fact, with President Trump, if you remember, there was this whole casualness about
Yeah.
talking about nuclear weapons, and for the first
Hmm.
time they sort of factored in that that cavalier attitude or that looseness of talk
Hmm.
also as affecting the possibility of use of nuclear weapons. Because if you were that casual in your talk, then you
Yeah.
were in a way normalizing nuclear weapons, whereas these are
Hmm.
supposed to be in a category of their own. So
Hmm.
that's what got reflected at that time in the
So
setting
every
of the clock.
time there is some kind of an India Park thing, and some kind of utter destruction and all that is these kind of remarks are passed. Does that affect perception?
It certainly affects perception because you know, when it happens at the global level, when you have President Trump talking like that, we saw
Hmm.
similar looseness in talk also in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
So as I often say, it's the US that sets the, you know, the fashion on the nuclear street.
Hmm.
And when it behaves in a certain way, or it does some actions of a particular kind, they do tend to get mimicked in other parts as well.
Hmm.
You know, as the biggest holders of nuclear arsenals, Russia and US do bear a special responsibility in how they should behave and deal with these weapons.
Hmm. Israel has also got an undeclared nuclear arsenal. How is that seen?
So Israel has never said that it has nuclear weapons, but it has never
Only
said that it
hinting.
will be the second to use nuclear weapons in case of a requirement. In
Hmm.
the current context, as this conflict was going on, there were some voices that came out from Israel suggesting that they have nuclear weapons and they could use them. But of course, the noise that came in the international community against it was certainly very loud. So Israel is known to have nuclear weapons. Certainly, the Americans have helped them, and the French in the
Hmm.
dimension of testing, but they don't declare it openly. So they don't have a doctrine or you know, a very well known or stated um, employment pattern.
Hmm. In fact, there is more noise made about Iran, which will not have any nuclear weapons at all.
Well, as of now, Iran, according to the IAEA estimates, doesn't have nuclear weapons, but it is
Hmm.
certainly increasing the stockpile of its enriched uranium, which
Hmm.
could take it to nuclear weapons much faster than it would have been if the JCPOA, the Iran deal with the US, had stayed in place. But because
Yeah.
President Trump withdrew from the JCPOA, we are today in a situation where Iran is not under any kind of obligation to live by the commitments that it had taken on. So certainly the capability in Iran is growing. Given the regional dynamics, there could be a case for Iran to go for nuclear weapons. But as of now, they have said that they're not inclined towards it. But they
Hmm.
have the capability to go there.
Hmm. No, I was reading reports about the Saudis seeking some kind of a deal with the Americans that would include a nuclear umbrella or nuclear, some kind of, a
So
defense.
that's on the civilian nuclear cooperation. So
Hmm.
the Saudi Arabia wants to build up nuclear power program. So they want to have nuclear energy as part of their electricity mix. And it's as part of that they were negotiating with the US to have the technology to set up the nuclear reactors there. The sticking point here was that Saudi Arabia wanted to have the enrichment program as well, the right to have
Mhm.
an enrichment program, just as Iran has. But the US, as part of what they call the gold standard, don't want to give either reprocessing or enrichment technology to anybody because that's the route to nuclear weapons. So that's where the deal was sort of getting struck.
Mhm. There have also been reports that Pakistan is re-emerging as a center for some kind of black market in nuclear commerce. How do you see this?
I haven't seen any reports in the near future about in the near past about such a thing. Um, See, Pakistan, because it's at the crossroads of having nuclear weapons, it has
Yeah,
a fairly big civilian nuclear program, and it is a supporter of terrorism. So,
yeah,
I mean, it's a deadly mix that exists there, and therefore the
yeah,
concern always remains about what could happen. We have seen in the past that Pakistan felt that you know, proliferation, nuclear proliferation to buyers who wanted to have this capability could be used as a way of gaining some extra cash. And when they are in dire economic straits, well, such things can happen.
yeah,
But
mm,
as of now, Pakistan does want to be known as a responsible nuclear uh, country.
yeah,
They have paid heed to a lot of nuclear security and safety conventions at the international level. They've joined them, so they're living by best practices on many of these. And one can hope that if they want to move in these directions of responsibility, then they would not indulge in behavior that they did once in the past.
hopefully. Last question, Manpreet. You're joining this bulletin. What do you expect to do, expect to learn? What's your sense?
I am hoping to learn a lot actually because it's a very interesting set of people. As I mentioned, it's the Science and Security Board. So there are people from the science background who are going to be there, and then those who look at the geopolitical dimensions far more carefully. So you will have a mix of these people. There are about, I think, 15, 16 people on the board. And they're expected to meet twice every year to have discussions on what's going on in the world, and therefore what should feature in the consideration of time setting. There are several Nobel laureates as part of the board of sponsors who are also taken, whose advice is also taken for setting the time. So it should be an extremely high profile group of people, much to learn from, and I hope I will be able to contribute as well from my understanding, particularly of our part of the world.
I think you're set for an amazing ride and all the very best, Manpreet. Congratulations again.
Thank you very
Great
much.
talking to you. And let's hope we catch up again on one of those occasions when something of this kind comes up. Thank you very
Thank,
much.
thank you.
That's all we have for you on the gist. And look forward to our future editions. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media. Thank you very much. Good day.